A former CIA senior officer with top secret level clearance has been accused of secretly stashing tens of millions of dollars in gold bars in his house that he said he needed for work-related expenses. For more on how this happened, let's bring in Fox News contributor and former CIA station chief, Dan Hoffman. So, Dan, you used to work at the CIA. How easy is it just to walk out of the CIA with a gold bar in your pocket? And how easy is it to do that 303 times until you have $40 million worth?
Listen, I served decades at CIA, and let's be clear, these are allegations, but if they're true, I served multiple years in war zones, behind enemy lines in the former Soviet Union. This is like one of the most unimaginably horrific scandals that I could, I mean, it's just, I don't know how he did this. You're talking about $40 million worth of gold bonds, $2 million in cash, 35 luxury watches. His home is not a secure facility. He, needless to say, shouldn't have been doing that. There are so many points of failure here. The background checks where he lied about where he went to school and that he was a U.S. Air Force pilot, neither of which were true. Did he undergo security checks, polygraph? None of that has come out yet, but I'm sure that in the Congress, House, Senate, Intelligence Committees will be bearing down on this to get all the facts. It's quite serious for the CIA. Look, foreigners spy on our behalf and often risk their lives in doing so because they trust us to protect the protected information, the intelligence that they're giving us. And when we have a scandal like this, it calls that into question.
And you just mentioned this in the affidavit. This guy had 35 luxury watches, mostly Rolexes. What's up with that? Is that a spy thing? We know James Bond always had a nice watch. Now it's Omega. It used to be Rolex. What's the deal with the watches?
Yeah, I don't know. I had a Casio. No, we don't use that. Look, and I can tell you, I can't tell you the budget for the CIA, but that's a healthy amount of money. And so the question is, who in the chain of command at CIA was signing off on this? And what was he doing with it? Whom was he going to pay? And why were we doing this with gold bonds? Typically, gold bars. Typically, we would pay our sources in cash. That would meld into whatever else they're doing with the money. But gold bars are arguably easier to track. So none of this makes a whole lot of sense. The fact that he was in the Directorate of Science and Technology, and there's no indication he was trained to conduct clandestine operations. The CIA is a secret place. We meet sources, and you've got to undergo a lot of training before you pay a source to do something clandestine. There's no indication he was trained to do this either.
And you were just getting at this. There are some former spies who are not convinced that this would be possible for one random guy, random spy. The New York Post has this. Former CIA Staff Operations Officer Tracy Walder was baffled over the stunning allegations against Russia and believes they could point to a much more troubling issue within the agency. This would have been a large-scale lying cover-up. Dan, what do you think?
Look, there are clearly others who are involved here. We'll just have to wait for those shoes to drop. But I can't imagine that, again, his chain of command going up pretty high, given the amount of money that we're talking about here, was in the know. And ultimately, it's the responsibility of Director CIA Ratcliffe, and now he's going to spend a lot of time on this. And look, everything's a zero-sum game. If he's worried about this flap, then he might not have as much time as we might like for him to focus on Iran or terrorist threats or Venezuela or Cuba or China or North Korea or Russia. So that's the additional challenge we face. The Congress will be focused on this, and he's going to have to answer a lot of questions in the coming days and weeks ahead.
And it sounds like this defendant was first on the radar of investigators because they were upset about a $70,000 discrepancy basically with his time card. They went in and found $40 million worth of stuff. Are spy agencies that loose with their money?
No. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, look, we all had what we called revolving funds, a few $1,000s that you'd use to pay folks that you were taking out to lunch or dinner, or maybe you were paying a source a monthly stipend or something like that, but not this amount of money. Again, this is going to raise a lot of flags about more serious problems, and it's over to Director Ratcliffe and whoever takes the job as the next Director of National Intelligence to deal with this. And I will just tell you, Peter, that this is what we know or what was alleged that this guy was doing. There's probably more that he was doing that just hasn't been uncovered yet, or more that others were doing as well. So there's a lot to get at here. And again, I think that the bright spotlight of congressional oversight will be shining on this one.
This is a crazy story. Dan Hoffman, thank you for your insight.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.